ideals. Maybe honor, bonds, they are loyal to their nation, and then flaws. Maybe they have an anger problem? Damn it! I just made Zuko again. Hello friends, Ginny D here, and if you are new here, welcome to my channel. My stuff is mostly targeted at role players in tabletop games like D&D, but if you do text-based roleplay or you're a writer, I hope this can be helpful to you too. Today I want to talk about character flaws, what it means for a character to be flawed, how to come up with flaws that suit them, and then how to incorporate them into your roleplay. I want to start by saying, as I often do, D&D is a game that we play for fun. The only audience you're writing your character for is your fellow players, so by no means are you obligated to make a character realistic the same way that you might be if you were writing for an audience, for consumption. That said, flaws can make a character more interesting and more fun to roleplay and to roleplay with. Plus, it can give your DM another element to play off of, which is probably why your character sheet has a specific section for you to write down your character's flaws. Finally, choose a flaw for your character. Your character's flaw represents some vice, compulsion, fear, or weakness. In particular, anything that someone else could exploit to bring you to ruin or cause you to act against your best interests. More significant than negative personality traits, a flaw might answer any of these questions. What enrages you? What's the one person, concept, or event that you are terrified of? What are your vices? Of course, each background includes a rolling table of flaws, and I think that can be a great place to start. But not everyone wants to randomize their character's personality, so in this video, I'll talk about how to use those rolling tables effectively, but I'll also talk about how to come up with your own flaws if that suits your style better. First of all, I want to say for the purposes of this video, I want to try and separate the discussion of flaws as writing tools from judgment attached to personality traits. I know the word flaw is a negative, but if I talk about something in this video as a flaw, that doesn't directly translate to how we should feel about that thing in real life. Like, in a lot of ways, trauma is a flaw in a narrative sense. That doesn't mean that you're a bad person for having trauma, just to be clear. When we talk about character flaws, what we mean is, what is going to get in this person's way? What's going to cause trouble for them? What's going to prevent them from easily achieving their goals? Conflict is important to storytelling. You can't really tell a story without it. Some conflict is external, obstacles in your character's path. Those aren't flaws. Flaws are all about internal conflict. I think it's also important to differentiate between superficial flaws and true character flaws. Don't get me wrong, superficial flaws are fun too, especially in a game like D&D where you can use them to really build an image of what your character is like. Superficial sounds negative, so let's call them flavor flaws. These are things like biting their nails, or getting common idioms wrong, or having a lisp. They can contribute to making your character feel whole and unique, but they're not actually going to meaningfully influence their actions. So basically, they're fun and totally use them, but that's not what we're talking about when we talk about flaws. Instead, a true flaw is something more like a fear of heights, an addiction, greed. Usually these stem from a fear or a false belief or some kind of moral failing. Think 7 deadly sins. So that's what a flaw is. Now, how do you come up with the right flaw for your character? Here's 4 different options. Think about your character's goals. What would get in their way? What would they have to overcome in order to achieve what they want? Picking a flaw that compromises their ability to achieve their goals is a great way to make sure that it comes into play during the game. And it gives your character a clear arc for how they'll need to grow before they can achieve what they want. For example, let's say that your character's goal is to escape their past. Maybe their flaw is resentment. They can't seem to move past their old grudges, their judgments, the ways their past has shaped them. This stops them from moving forward. As much as they want to make a new start, be a different person than they were before, this resentment is just stuck inside them and they can't let go of it. Or maybe their goal is to end a war between 2 nations, but their flaw is always seeing things in black and white, struggling to accept nuance and see both sides of a problem. They'll never be able to end this war unless they can truly understand why each side is so committed to continuing it. As long as they think about things in absolutes, they'll always favor one side of the conflict, which will essentially draft them into it. The connection between their goal and their flaw doesn't have to be super literal, but it could be. They can even be in direct opposition. Their goal is to escape the cycle of violence that created them, but their flaw is that they're vengeful. These kind of internal conflicts can be really interesting to explore in a character, and because of the nature of how tabletop games are played, they could take you in all kinds of different directions. Maybe they learn to forgive and make peace, or maybe they discover that vengeance can be cathartic or even healing, and violence against the right people can do good. It all depends on what happens at the table. I don't know about you, but personally, one of my character flaws is overscheduling myself so that whenever I try to run D&D, I haven't given myself enough time to prepare. No, just me. That's why I love today's sponsor, Dungeon Craft. They make 2D reversible terrain pieces, so all you have to do is cut them out and lay them onto your game mat to create unique and beautiful custom maps in seconds. They're even wet and dry erase compatible, so you can mark them up during play. You might have heard me talk about their previous books, Castles and Keeps, Cursed Lands, or Hell and High Water. They actually just launched a Kickstarter for their 2 newest books, Fallen Kingdom and Jungles of Dread. These books are full of beautifully illustrated, overgrown jungles, dungeons, camps, and coastal markets, and some of the most iconic locations from Tomb of Annihilation. Each book has nearly 1,000 pieces, so whatever jungle world you want to bring to life, you are more than covered. Even if you don't plan on pledging to the Kickstarter, they have a free adventure called Den of the Serpent King that you can download from their Kickstarter page. I've already read through it. It is a lot of fun. Your players can fight ancient subterranean crocodiles and huge jungle crabs. You don't have to back the campaign to get it. They are just giving it to you because they're super cool. The link is in the description so you can make your pledge and download the PDF. What is your character really good at? A flaw doesn't need to negate that strength, but it could temper it in some way. This introduces complexity every time your character does the thing that they're best at. Say that your character is extremely intelligent, but they lack confidence. So even when they have a smart solution to a problem, or they know something important, they might not be confident enough to volunteer it, or they might voice it in a self-doubting way that stops others from taking it seriously. Or on the other end of the spectrum, maybe they're an arrogant know-it-all, which rubs people the wrong way. On the rare occasions where their intelligence fails or misleads them, they refuse to accept that they might be wrong. Here's another example. Your character is super charismatic and charming, but they're also very vain, so they can be taken advantage of by someone who appeals to their vanity. Or maybe they place so much weight on being liked that when their charisma fails, they're crushed by it. Connecting your character's greatest flaw to their greatest strength gives you opportunities during the game to roleplay both sides of that equation. While some flaws might be easy for your character to hide, this method ensures that every once in a while, your character will end up throwing a wrench into their own gears, which can lead to some really cool, organic character moments. In real life, most of our internal struggles are related to our past experiences, which is why, therapy. In the same way, you can root your character's flaws into their backstory. This could be related to some trauma that scarred them. For example, if they were betrayed by someone they were close to, they might be hesitant to trust people now. Maybe they're suspicious of anyone who offers to help them. They might even conceal some information from their own party members out of fear that they'll be betrayed again. Or perhaps they lost a family member or a friend and they blame themselves for what happened. So now they're impulsive and they're quick to put themselves into danger to protect the people around them. But you can also create flaws rooted in backstory that aren't trauma-related. Maybe they had some false belief instilled in them based on the way they were raised or trained, such as they were taught to respect and obey figures of authority without question. So now they might sometimes trust people that they really shouldn't, just because they're in a position of power. A corrupt authority figure may be really difficult for that character to respond to. Or maybe they grew up with a very adversarial relationship with a sibling or had a cutthroat educational environment. So now they're extremely competitive and they have trouble seeing other people succeed without feeling like it means that they themselves have failed. I think a lot of us can point to things that we ourselves believed when we were younger that we now know are not true, or at least not as cut and dried as we initially thought. That kind of experience can be great inspiration for character flaws. And of course, you can use the rolling tables. Backgrounds start on page 125 of the player's handbook, and each has their own set of rolling tables for personality traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws. Using these tables to randomize traits can be a really good starting point for a character, especially if you don't already have a clear idea in mind. You might roll up a guild artisan and end up with a perfectionist painter who aspires to be the best and plans on one day returning to their guild to prove their greatness. They have the flaw of never being satisfied with what they have. That sounds like a perfectly good character personality. A perfectionist who's never satisfied with what they have would probably also never be satisfied with their own work. If their goal is to be the greatest, then they don't truly believe they can ever reach it. That's a huge internal conflict. However, sometimes the roles will be a little harder to fit together. For example, you could also roll a guild artisan who is a stingy shoemaker who doesn't part with money easily, and whose ideal is generosity, and who owes their guild a great debt, and their flaw is that they stole from the guild coffers. I'm not saying you couldn't make it work. People make contradictory choices all the time, but personally, I would find that kind of character difficult and confusing to play. All this is just to say, if you do use the rolling tables, I would encourage you to just try it a few times and see what combinations of options are inspiring. You don't have to be married to whatever the dice throw at you. Once you know what your character's flaws are, how do you go about actually incorporating that into your gameplay? The first thing to keep in mind is that your character's flaws shouldn't make the game less fun for you or for others at your table. If your flaw requires being obnoxious or constantly obstructing other characters, it might not be a good one for a group role-playing experience. It's really important that you talk with your table about this. Some groups would be fine with your character's flaws giving your group a disadvantage in combat sometimes, or making it difficult for your party to negotiate with NPCs, or something else, but other groups would find that really frustrating. Every table is different, and I don't know your specific context, so make sure to communicate with your fellow players and your DM. In general, the more you understand your character's flaws as a part of their personality and a result of experiences, the easier it'll be to identify when it should come out in roleplay. If you just say, "My character is naive," that could mean a lot of different things, and it could get annoying really fast if you just play your character as not understanding anything about the world around them. But if you say, "My character grew up very sheltered in a religious community with strong moral values, and is too naive to understand that others may be intentionally deceptive or cruel," then you know that they're not too naive to understand a sexual joke, but they are too naive to recognize when they're being scammed by a shopkeeper. Your character should also grow and change over time as their experiences during sessions make an impact on them. If your character is reckless but they run headlong into a trap and one of their party members is badly hurt as a result, they're probably going to at least think about that next time they have an opportunity to be reckless. It doesn't have to be, and probably shouldn't be, a quick change. It can take time to overcome and unlearn flawed behaviors, but as your character levels up and grows in other ways throughout the game, they should also be growing in terms of their flaws. I would love to hear all about your character's flaws in the comments. And if you like this video, I have a bunch more videos that you would probably enjoy, like how to write interesting character backstories without leaning on tragedy, or how to develop a voice for your roleplay character even if you can't or don't want to do accents. Check them out in my D&D advice playlist, linked right here on this very screen, where we currently are.